This is the latest edition of Front Up, and I'm Whitey Willauer, and I've got a great guest here, Petekaizer. And Pete has got a mission that he is working on right now. And I bumped into him the other day down at the town building. And Pete, what are you working on?
Well, Whitey, as you well know, I'm sure it's been at some of your meetings. But anyway, it's, you know, we're an island.
Yes.
There's a lot of mariners here. The ferry boat is our lifeline to and from the mainland.
Sure.
And it's against the law to put out anything in the water which would be a hazard to navigation. I mean, Certainly. It's against the law. You can't throw a garbage bag out there.
Yeah.
If I did in front of the Coast Guard, they'd probably fine me.
Yeah.
So anyway, this all started about, you know, I have a boat. I come and go. We used to fish all year round. Now we, you know, in the wintertime, we don't come in and out of the jetties. If anything, we go space scalloping. But even the base scallopers have got to be watching for this. It's been, you know, around the TVs and on the news about the area south of by Sheep's Pond, where there were these geotubes.
Right.
The geotube bags that were used to try and slow down the erosion. So this goes back to around 1995, 96. One gentleman, I don't know, I might mention his name or not, but anyway, had a little bit of an argument, disagreement with the town, put in for putting up the massive amount of these bags to try and slow down the erosion. And the town didn't think it was a good idea, through their wisdom and all the boards, and said, no, you can't do it. So what he did was he went to the state and was able to supersede the local Concom. And he got approval to put these bags in. So nobody was happy about it. And there was some bad chemistry that developed from that first encounter. So therefore, the gentleman went about and put these bags in. They started off being some smaller black bags, which a neighbor of his also had. But as the storms would come, they would start grabbing these things, twisting them, ripping them open, and the sand inside, a lot of times, would fall out. These are made of a poly material, and poly, like poly rope, floats. So these other bags were probably 8 by 8, some 10 by 10, and we started seeing them all around the beaches. About 2 years ago, one winter, we were down, my buddy Dougie Hawks, who's fishing, he fished all around the world, he now runs tugboats in New York Harbor. We went for a ride down by the jetties, and on the inside of the jetty, down by Johnson & Johnson's house, we found one of these black poly bags. And we're thinking, you know, this is bizarre. They're coming from that side of the island all the way around, and we know they've come around because people have said they've seen them on the beach. Here, there, Code 2, Dionis, over Great Point. So anyway, 2 years ago, I got pretty upset about it because I thought, you know, I have a 35-foot boat, single screw. We come in and out of those jetties like a lot of other guys on this island who are, you know, great mariners. And you get one of those wrapped in your prop, and a west wind, which all summer it blows west, southwest, that's dominant wind. You're going to end up, you won't have time to fool around. You'll be on those rocks in a heartbeat. You know, you could break the shaft, rip, and you know, in the open sport boats that the props just hang down, you could wind those things up, you could rip the struts right out, and possibly sink the boat. Not even get to the boat, not even get to the rocks. So anyway, we started raising hell about it about 2 years ago. And it was like, well, we understand, and there was a little bit of movement going forward, a little bit of dialogue going on, but nobody went that extra effort and said, okay, we got to get them out. Actually, I'll retract that. The black bags that were next to Ratner's, they did go to that gentleman and said, look, you got to get these out of here. They took some of them out of there. They didn't get them all out. They took some. Meanwhile, this guy, Gene Ratner, who was his neighbor, had a lot of these black bags also. But he then engaged in getting these larger white, which are 14 by 14 feet square, a heavy-duty, rugged poly, and started, because from the state, I talked to the guy that approved it, a guy named Steve Mahala, EPA, and he said, look, we approved them that time, but since then, we have approved no more of those. We realize they can be a hazard to navigation, and we don't allow those anymore. But then again, it's a work in progress, this whole permitting thing, trial and error. But on this gentleman's permit, he was allowed sort of an open-ended maintenance clause just said maintenance. Maintenance and repair. So anyway, he's been not only maintenance, repairing, but also replacing, and no accountability. No accountability at all. So, the black bags were bad enough. Everybody was concerned about it. The fact that we found them inside the harbor, right down the channel. They come in there and then get washed over to Johnson & Johnson's. So, earlier this year, in October, about the first week of October, we were down fishing. I had a couple with me. We were running the charters this time of year, in October. So, we were down at Sconset, blowing about 20, 25, gusty. It's a little nasty, but anyway, we went down there with this couple. Went down, we caught some striped bass, some nice stripers, some sea bass. And I said, you know what? It's time to get out of here. The tide's going to change at noontime. We want to be in because there's thunderstorms coming and lightning. So we start back. We tuck in about a quarter of a mile off the beach at Sankaty. We start running up. And all of a sudden, luckily the light is how it was, I noticed something just below the surface, this white, big white area, almost like the great white we seen at the time. But anyway, but it was wide, big, and it was like, what could that be? And we pull up, lo and behold, it's one of these 14 by 14, totally stretched out, floating just under the surface. So we stop. It was unbelievable. So we stopped. Three of us pulled this thing in, and it was raining, and I was like, you know what? It's pretty bizarre that we ran across this. What would be the chances of running into another one? So I said, I'm going to ride up on the bridge. So we're coming down the beach, about 3 miles up near Squam. Lo and behold, here's another, a half of a bag. Yeah. This one's like 14 by 7. And when it's in the beach, when the waves start grabbing it and ripping it and tearing it, sometimes they'll rip right in half. Yeah. So now we have this other section. And it was like I was being haunted by it. You know, it's like I've got way too much chemistry with these bags now. So we came in, we took the time to pull that in, late getting in before the tide, lightning storm and all that. So I was really irritated. So we came in, and I thought about it, and I said, before I start pointing fingers, and I think that there came from the Sheep's Pond project, which is Gene Ratner. Yeah. I'm saying his name because I'm fed up with it. Anyway, we went out there, I cut a piece of the bag that we had. I cut a piece of bag where all the stitching is to make sure that the color of the stitching, the design of the stitching, the whole lay of the bag would be the same or not the same. I didn't want to point fingers and yell about it beforehand. We went out there. There it was. Exact same stitching. They have some bright pink telltale pieces of string coming out of them. That's the bag. That same bag. This is the origin of where this bag came from. Convinced that's where it happened. So then I came back, went to the Coast Guard, said, look, put out a notice to the mariners. Went to the Concom, went to the Selectmen. I was pretty wild because I don't want to meet my demise in that channel on the jetties. I've been up and down the damn coast, and I don't want to. And we know they're floating around. The town knows it. Everybody knows. But anyway, it's a work in progress. People are talking about it. They're trying to get this thing on the hand, but it's not happening. So anyway, we go down and say, let's get these bags off the boat after I run around and rattle everybody's cage. We get down, we're unloading them over at Children's Beach, and I hear this big bang by the steamship. And I thought one of the tractor trailers ran into the wall or something. We get them loaded up. 10 minutes later, I get a call from my buddy Phil at the sunken ship. He said, come on, emergency dive job. Something happened to the ferry boat. It just ran into the dock. I said, wow. So we drop everything, get the dive gear on, we go down there. Lo and behold, what are the chances? Phil jumps in first. I stayed up. I make sure that nobody goes, the engineer's there, the captain, so that the engines don't actually get thrown in gear. He goes down to just take an observation, comes up, shaking his head. He goes, it's another one of the bags. Got twisted in the rudder, locked up in the prop. So when the captain was backing in, the thing came tight, lost steering, lost one of the engines, became basically, in dire straits, ran into the dock, dented the ferry boat, people went flying. Luckily, thank God, nobody got seriously hurt. So you think that would be enough testimony that people would be outraged, wild, that these bags have got to come out of there. But it's still a slow-moving process. There's still, I know there's dialogue going on, but, you know, this Mr. Radner, I guess, is threatened to sue the town and says the weather's bad and you can't do it. But in his order of conditions, I found out from this guy that approved it, upon failure of the house, if it were to meet its demise and fall in the ocean, that the debris was to come out and all the bags were to come out. There's been no, they wrote him a letter. The Concom they're trying within what power they have, they're trying to do the best they can, but it's the process is not happening. The bags are still there, they're coming loose, they're up and down the beaches. And then, that was in October, early October. About a week and a half ago, the same guy, Dougie Hawks, when he's off, he comes over for coffee, we talk about, you know, nautical things and all the characters in our past. He said, he called me up, says, you gotta get down here, you won't believe it. Right over by the sailboat shack, inside the jetties, by Johnson & Johnson's.
That's Nantucket Community Sailing.
Right, inside the jetties, right?
Yeah.
There's another one, a full-size 14 by 14, white, same stitching, same telltale signs. One of the bags, we believe the origin was Mr. Ratner's. So, not only that, but about 12 or 15 feet away was another black one. And a lot of those bags were tied together. So these two probably went in tandem and came around together.
Now, how do the bags find their way into the harbor?
Well, there's this thing called tide and current. And it's pretty wild. The fact that they're better, that they're below the surface, they don't have as much windage. So we had a lot of north winds this year in the fall. And to tell you the truth, we're not sure if it came around from Ratner's, came down between Tuckanuck and Esther's, came in the cut that way, and then came along the North Shore.
They stick close to the shore?
Wherever the tide takes them.
Yeah.
If you got the stronger tides, you're going to get more of a direct line. If your tides aren't as strong, like between the moons, on the full moon and the new moon, that's when your current's the strongest.
Yeah.
You're going to get more of a direct line. In between, you're going to have the wind can push them toward the beach more. Or if you have a big storm, it'll wash them right up on the beach. Yeah. Because we see the debris along the beaches. So anyway, still not sure if it came that way.
Yeah.
Or it was a couple of them like we encountered coming back from Sankaty, one just north of Sankaty, between Sankaty and Sacajah, and then up 3 miles up off Squam, there was another one there. So we're not sure which way they came, but there are some of these black bags that are scattered along the outside of Great Point, in Code 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the corner of the bay.
Right, in the corner of the bay. And then, in fact, one of the people affiliated with the Concom were talking about it, and she said, you know, I was actually swimming inside the harbor over in Second Bend and was swimming along, and all of a sudden felt something up against her skin. Didn't know if it was an octopus. And it was one of these black bags that had been shredded up, and it just was all around her. She just freaked out. I took a flight. I have a little fish spotter plane right around the 1st of October. I made a flight, and you could see all the bags are sitting there.
Yeah.
And on a calm day, it'll be interesting to see where the low tide mark is. Because when he put those in, supposedly they were on his land. But at this point in time, because of erosion, right? The beach goes straight now. He doesn't have the peninsula there. The beach goes straight, and most of these bags are below the low water line.
Yeah. Well, now you're getting into the legal side. I was just trying to figure out the physical side, and the physical side is try to get rid of the ones that are there. And then what would you? How would you get rid of the ones that are out there? Would you be dragging for them, or how?
Well, you can see them. I mean, they're not. They're
can
not
you get
like,
them from the air?
I can see them from the air, no problem. So, I have some photos that I will.
So you can spot them from the air.
And they're all piled up there. I've been on flights.
No, I mean out in the water. Can you see them from the air?
You can, but it's just they're like little time release capsules. Nobody knows when they're coming loose.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying, could you search by air and find them and then go get them?
They tried that, but they never found any.
Oh, okay.
It was immediately after the ferry boat had tangled it in the prop and had this incident, you know, rammed it, dented the ferry boat.
Yeah.
They went up and they notified some of the pilots and stuff, and they made some flights, but said, oh,
Yeah.
looks like it's all clean, nothing's here.
Yeah. So it's not a good way of finding, like we can find the red tide from the air.
Right.
This is not.
So I'm going to go to the Nantucket Air and the pilots out there, the commuter pilots.
Yeah, you got to figure out a.
Well,
yeah,
tactic, that's one of the things I'm going to do, because those guys will continue flying.
Sure.
I've got photos of it from the air. I got photos of it from the boat. I'm going to show it to them, make copies. They can hand it to the pilots and say, hey, look, when you're coming in, it's a VFR day. Everything looks great. You'll see them. If the light is right, you can't miss them.
Yeah, then you got to figure out.
No, you just call the Coast Guard then.
Coast Guard will go get them?
Yep.
Okay, so you got.
So they're well aware of it. We're trying to get a hold of the port captain to see if we can utilize some of his, momentum. The Steamship Authority, they're still up in the air. They don't know if they're going to possibly. It's almost like somebody needs to take legal action. I was thinking of putting a class action suit, and I could get 1,000. I could get 1,000 people to sign on to it in no time at all. Yeah. But I was advised yesterday that that would take a little more doing. Yeah. But Mr. Ratner needs to be,
well, now you
forget the bad blood. Forget the bad blood between Mr. Ratner and 1995, 1996, when all this happened. Forget all that. That game's over. It's like the Hatfields and McCoys. Yeah. Game's over. If somebody would have got killed on the ferry boat, right there, it happened. If somebody would have gotten killed, that's how serious it is. Yeah. And again, I've been there. I've, thrown a blade, cracked the, snapped the shaft in a storm. They had to get towed in. Being in those jetties and stuff like that. Yeah. I feel it with a passion because I've been there. Mm-hmm. And every ferry boat captain, every, fast ferry, whatever. Yeah. These guys are like, just trying not to even think about it because they know how damaging it could be. Yeah. You get the high speed. Trying to get a hold of Mr. Ratner to have a phone conversation with him and say, look, I'd appreciate, we'll put our time in, we'll do the diving on these bags. Mm-hmm. We just need to get these out of here for the common good. And what a hell of a legacy. I don't know the gentleman. I hear some people say he's a great guy. Some people have other attitudes about him. Doesn't matter. But to have your legacy because you were stubborn about a clerical thing with the Concom, to have somebody die. So every time they say, Whitey, they go, that's the guy that wouldn't get rid of those bags and somebody died. Mm-hmm. It'd be a bad legacy to have, right?
I'm getting signals from our captain over here that he's running out of tape. So.
Well, I got one other question since we're talking. I'm doing all the talking. I have one question. Yeah. How did you get the nickname Whitey?
My given name is Whiting, Whiting, which was
like the fish, the
whiting. Like the fish. My grandmother's or my great grandmother's maiden name was Whiting, and Whiting Field in Pensacola is my uncle Ken Whiting, and so it was a family name put on front and then shortened to Whitey. So that's a partial explanation.
I'm just curious about it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
So that's where we're at, and it'd be nice if we could. I'm going to try to, even if the town could have some kind of a reporting line where if somebody encounters one of these white bags, if it's off Cisco, if it's off Surfside, if it's off the Navy base, and a lot of people have these cell phones which have GPS numbers in it, they could just call in, leave the message. They don't have to have anybody answer it, automated phone call.
Yeah. So you need a strategy.
That's what we're working on right now. But it needs to be done. It's like the ocean's been good to me. I've been, fishing-wise and stuff. And, you have to be, the people that have been successful should give back a little, and that's where it's been mentioned that, that only the experienced people can be the good stewards of the ocean. Yeah. And so I'm taking a little bit of the brunt of it and say, look, I need to run with this ball.
Worthwhile.
It seems like 100 years since I reached out to dry those